So, welcome to the quarantine version of African American Voices of Charles County. I am Joe Sampson Jr., your host, and today my guest will be Mr. Clarence Arnold from the Arnold House. Now, the Arnold House has done a lot of incredible things within Charles County, and we are excited to talk with Mr. Clarence about what they've done, what they continue to do, and how in this special time throughout the country, how they are affecting the lives of county residents. So stand by and we'll return with episode number 9 of African American Voices of Charles County. So welcome back, Mr. Arnold. Clarence, I appreciate you and your willingness to participate in this interview series. Like we talked about before, we normally do our interviews over at the College of Southern Maryland, but we were unable to do that, based on this quarantine and the COVID-19 pandemic. But it's also because of that I really kind of got involved with some of the work you all do on the small scale. And while we had decided we weren't going to do any episodes until we were able to get back into the studio, I really wanted to highlight what you guys were doing, mainly because I've been fortunate enough to see it firsthand, and to say it's impressive is, it's an understatement. So I'm going to start this out with a thank you, because you guys have been doing some incredible work literally every day, and we'll get into that a little later. But I want to start from the very, very beginning. And when I say the very beginning, I mean the day one when you opened your eyes and saw the sun. So where are you born and raised?
Okay. Well, first off, thank you for having me, providing this opportunity for hearing a little bit about the Arnold House, and just thank the community again for supporting the Arnold House, first and foremost, because of everyone involved. That's makes us who we are. Now, a little bit about me. I am born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. As you can see in the background, I am a diehard Cleveland Browns fan. I bleed Cleveland. There is this other team in Maryland that we won't even discuss. But anyway,
I understand.
And yeah, so I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, in the city. Went to Glenville High School, which is, let's see, Steve Harvey is known for that one.
Okay.
And once I graduated from Glenville High School, I joined the Navy, where I was a photographer's mate. So I had the opportunity to just travel the world and document Navy life.
Wow.
Yeah. And so after 21 years of service, I retired as a chief photographer's mate here in Charles County and said, I'm not moving anymore. So.
Wow. A photographer's mate. That's pretty interesting. And I can see some of the stuff behind you there is the tools of the trade.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are you still in that field now that you've retired, or are you?
I actually do it freelance. That's one of the other businesses or things I do in my spare time with little I have, is I do photography. And yeah, that was my way of coming into the Navy. I went to the recruiter's office because I had a couple of friends who had joined, and I said, okay, well, I needed to leave Cleveland because, to be honest, the drug scene was coming in. This is the early 80s, and I just knew that wasn't for me, and I knew what that life was going to be about, so I had to get out of there.
Yeah.
So I went to the Navy recruiter. Actually went to the Air Force. They weren't in the office, so I went to the Navy. And
Is that what we're gonna do? All right.
And
All
but
right,
no,
I'll take it. He was out. He was taking the lunch break that we Air Force individuals are afforded.
okay, yes. And so, and to be honest, I literally told the recruiter, I said, "Do not give me your spiel. I don't want to hear it. I want to be a photographer.
Wow.
I can't be a photographer. I just won't go into the service."
Yeah.
And he kind of looked at me, you know, in this puzzled look and said, "I don't know. That's going to be tough." And he says, "Are you in a hurry to leave?" I said, "No, I'm okay." You know, and so I had to wait 9 months before I went in, but I got to school, and that was it for me.
Let me ask you this.
Hmm.
Um, that's pretty interesting. What led to this love of photography that you knew at that moment that's what you wanted to do?
Oh man, I have actually, in all honesty, have been doing photography since elementary school. Um, yeah, I started in Cleveland. They had there was a center called the Supplementary Center, and
Okay.
what basically they would do is they would take children from all over the city, bust them into this facility, and you would be exposed to arts, science, you name it. And so that was my first exposure to it. And then in about the fifth grade, I had a teacher who was really big into photography and movie making, and he taught us to do claymation, you know, the animation with the clay.
Hmm.
So that really sparked my interest. And then in the sixth grade, they kind of did a follow-on class, but doing photography. And from there, I just carried on with it.
Wow. So, in I noticed you said you really knew you were going to stick with it around sixth grade. Did you did you were you partaking in anything photography in school, in like high school? Were you?
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, in junior high school and high school, mainly high school, I was a school photographer for the newspaper and the yearbook staff and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Um, During junior high school, I was really involved in arts and drawing and that sort of thing. So
Wow.
I've always been in that creative realm.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So you decide I want to be a photographer.
Hmm.
That's going to be my career path. But how did you marry being a photographer and going into the armed forces?
Well, that's a really interesting story. So again, I grew up Cleveland, single parent home. Um, I told my mother what I wanted to be. The time I wanted to go to Brooks Institute, and that was probably one of the best schools for photography, and it was out in California, and it was about $35,000 a year. And my mother was like, "Yeah, that's not going to happen."
I haven't.
She's like, "I've got $700 for you.
Hmm.
You do what you have to do." So again, I took that, looked into the military, and I said, well, I get the opportunity to do photography, which I love. I get the opportunity to travel. Um, the Naval Schools of Photography was probably uh, third in terms of quality of education in the country.
Wow.
And so I said, the only thing I have to give them is time. I'm doing nothing else.
I got enough of that, right?
That's it. So 3 hots a cot,
Yeah.
have the opportunity to travel and do something I love. Why not? You know,
Wow.
and I never intended on staying 21 years, but they kept giving me assignments that I liked. So,
Yeah.
hmm.
So, that's interesting. All right, so let's talk a little bit about that. The assignments, you know, the from the outside looking in, the Navy, you know, we assume everyone's on a ship somewhere and they stay there forever, and you know they never touch land. As you know, as you definitely know, uh, Diota Sweat is our president of the local branch, and we did an episode with her, and we talked a lot about her time in the Navy and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting to hear it from the perspective of an individual whose job was to capture that for the rest of the world and the Navy themselves to see. So, did you have to do any ship time or?
Oh yes,
Okay.
I've done ship time. I've done, and that's the interesting part about why I joined the Navy and doing what I do. Because one day I could be shooting a portrait in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
The next day I'm flying on a helicopter doing aerial photography. The next day I'm out with VIPs. As a matter of fact, one of my best experiences when I was stationed in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, I had the opportunity to spend the day with Jacques Cousteau. Now, young
Wow.
folks may not know who that is.
Wow.
Uh,
That is crazy.
yeah, or, meet Joe Frazier, various VIPs, and that's a tremendous experience. And then as well, I would go on assignment, fly out to the ship or various ships, spend a couple days, a week, just documenting that life, in addition to being stationed on the ship.
Yeah.
So it was just fascinating to me,
Wow.
sitting out with my feet dangling out of a helicopter strapped into a gunner's belt. That is just an exhilarating feeling.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine. Um, wow. That's really interesting. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I know we came to talk about the Arnold House, but
No
I
worries.
feel like we could mess around and stay here for quite some time. And wow, that's really interesting. So I'm gonna move a little bit
Okay.
down the line because you're now in the Navy. You've clearly been moving around the world, as we can see. Um, you know, anyone who's ever had to deal with or been around anything affiliated with the Arnold House, we know that there's a special lady who does a lot of work, who has one heck of a personality. Um, let's talk about that. Let's talk about
So
Mrs. Arnold.
I have to say, she is CEO. She is the face of it. She does the daily operations and really interacts with the community
Yeah.
in so many ways and deals with the schools, our customers. She is the face of the Arnold House. I like to say, I just kind of take orders and lift the boxes and do the grunt work.
Absolutely.
And
So let me ask you that. Where did you two meet? What is the beginning story of the Arnolds for the Arnold House?
Oh, I don't know if
Now I will go on record, since this is taped, that this is a one-sided perception of the beginning. But as the fellow man here in this situation who gets to tell one side of the story, I'm sticking with you on this one.
Okay. Oh, that's because there's no audience. I get it. I was in the Navy and down in Tampa, Florida, is where we met. And I was actually stationed in Pensacola. We met in Tampa, day to day to talk, and I said, "Come on with me."
Nice.
And
Nice.
she said,
Now,
"All right."
she's from Puerto Rico, correct?
Her family is Puerto Rico. She's a Nuyorican. She's actually from the Lower East Side of Manhattan,
Oh,
Alphabet City,
nice.
right by the Williamsburg Bridge.
Yes, I know exactly where that is. Absolutely.
Yes. But
Nice.
yes, and her family is from Puerto Rico.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. That's pretty good. So she hitches along for the ride. You guys take off. You continue to see more of the world. The Navy. I'm sure she held down the fort many a days
She held it down.
while you were on that ship duty. Let's talk about how you ended, how you came about to your final stamp. This is where I'm planting the flag, and how Charles County was so fortunate to have that happen.
Okay, so um, I had actually, once we transferred, I'd gotten off of the ship and transferred up here, and we were right at 18, 19 years, going to retire. Says, okay, maybe do one more assignment, uh, and then talking to the detailer, who is the person that kind of gives you your orders and where you go next.
Hmm.
um, they said, well, Chief, we can put you back on an amphibious ship, which is what I just came off of prior to coming here to the DC area. And I said, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Because we were, as a small boy, flat top, it's a large ship. It was a amphibious assault ship with the LCACs, which are the hovercrafts and that sort of thing. We were out quite a bit. We go out Monday morning, come back in Friday, but go back out Monday, and you'd have duty one of those 2 days, and it was a lot. And so when the detailer was like, well, Chief, you can, go back out to sea and you'll go back to amphibious ship. I said, nah, I'm going to hang my papers in, hang my hat here. And in addition to that, I said, I'm just tired of moving. So we wanted a slower pace. So we kind of moved down here to Charles County. An interesting story, as we were, I used to live on Bowling Air Force Base in the base housing.
Okay.
And so we were looking for areas to live. And my wife and I, we were driving, and we brought our children down, and we had taken the back road right at Cedarville, because we stay up in Pinefield. And as we're going on the back road, it's dark and, no lights, 2-lane road. Our oldest daughter just burst in tears. She was like, we're leaving the city for this.
What are you doing to me?
And so
that's fantastic.
That's about 18 years ago. So yeah, we've been in the community.
18 years. Wonderful.
18 years.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to pause right here, and then we'll come back with a little bit more about the conception and the beginning stages of the Arnold House. All right?
All right. Okay. Sounds good.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We're the NAACP. We don't follow movements, we define movements.
Welcome back. We just finished up learning some pretty awesome things about Mr. Clarence, and how fortunate the Navy was that we Air Force gentlemen took our lunch break. at the time he came to the recruiter's office. Being a photographer and some of the really cool opportunities you've had. I'm sure you could talk quite some time about that Jacques Cousteau moment in life and many more like them. But we finished up with your daughter's tears at the realization that she was going to be living in Charles County. And while we want to talk about the conception of the Arnold House, I also realized that community service doesn't just start day one. A person doesn't just wake up and decide, I'm going to start feeding the needy in my community or my adopted community day one and then start that. So if you can, what do you think, or can you remember your earliest relationship with some form of community service, and what that meant to you. Who instilled it in you? Did you see it?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what. Yes, indeed. I come from a family that is truly entrenched in civil rights, entrenched in community service and helping. As a matter of fact, um, the key person that has helped me was my uncle, Reverend James Bevel, who, for anyone that knows history,
The James Bevel?
the James Bevel.
Wow.
Yes, the the James Bevel.
What's happening right now? Wow.
Yes, the inside man with Dr. Martin Luther King,
Yes.
the speaker at the Million Man March, the one of the founders of SNCC and the Student March on Birmingham. Yes, that man.
And for the newer individuals who are watching this, if in the movie Selma, since that's probably your point of reference, Common plays his uncle. Wow.
Yes. And his wife was Diane Nash.
Yep.
Yes. And so that kind of formed that civil rights aspect of it. And also, I have to give a shout out to my cousin Richard Rose, who is the Atlanta president of the NAACP.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So again, it's kind of ingrained in my family, you know, diversity and just helping and just doing what's right and for the community.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. And the other side, I will say, the Marion is, by my wife being Puerto Rican, you know, the Hispanics love to have community and eat and throw down. And so it's that blending that kind of makes us or helps us do what we do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I think I brought all of those experiences throughout life, coming here to Charles County, and then, you know, just getting involved in various organizations, being involved with different events and activities. And at the time, I was actually working with the soup kitchen and really discovered, talking with one of the other board members, and he was telling me about folks living in the woods.
Okay.
I'm like, what? No, not here. And at the time, my wife, earlier, she had said, you know, this was a couple years before that. She had worked part-time at Baskin Robbins, and she was like, yeah, there are people that live in the woods. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thought nothing of it. Fast forward years later, working with the soup kitchen, talking with a board member, he said, yeah, there's people living in the woods. I'm like, no, not here. And he said, yeah, I can show you. We could set up a meeting. And I actually set up a meeting with him and was talking with him, and was just blown away.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
But my wife and I, we went out there and we talked about them, or we talked with them and looking at them. And this was where the foundation of the Arnold House came about, because we were talking with some of the people in the woods, and well, they were saying that throughout the holiday times, a lot of people are very giving, very helpful, donations, and it's beautiful. But one of the gentlemen was like, but in April, May, or June, you don't see those people. And it was like, wow, okay, all right. And it was actually then my wife, again, loving to cook, she says, we will make a Sunday meal and bring it out to you guys. And we were going to do that. We'll do that every Sunday. And that was kind of the ignition to the Arnold House.
Wow.
And then just as another note, in doing that, as we had expanded a little bit and going out to the various encampments, we had met a pastor as we were coming into one, and he was talking with some of the folks in the encampment. And today, he actually kind of leads our soup kitchen down at United Methodist. So that's Pastor Ron. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, when I learned about the encampments here in Charles County, I had the exact same reaction. My daughter, she has locks, and the lady who was her hairdresser at the time lived in the area down here in Charles County, and she also works at one of the local schools. And so we were talking about, she was talking about kids and not being able to pay for lunches and things like that. So every time my daughter would get her hair done, give her a little extra so she could, because she was saying she was taking it out of her pocket to pay for kids' lunches, which I thought was incredible. And then she said her church at the time used to go out into the woods and feed the homeless. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, one, there's a lot of woods in Charles County. So, right, where are we talking? And she was like, oh no, like right on 301. I said, where? Like, where's this possible? And so she told me one day if I were to be on a specific street looking at a specific restaurant, if I turned my head to the right and looked at the woods right there, I would see this encampment. And when I saw it, I was just blown away.
Right.
And so, yeah, wow. So I understand, and I will say this, as much community services as I do and things like that, there's still a difference between, I'll say, you and I, in the fact that you saw it, and being fortunate enough to be married to an individual who loves to cook. And it doesn't appear to me, since you were already at the soup kitchen, that this was much of a conversation on either one of you part. And you did what you thought was right, like you said.
Yeah. And it's funny because I really give my wife the credit on a lot of that, because, again, coming from that background, it's about eating and making sure people eat. And so it's so interesting because, again, we started at going to the encampments and says, okay, we are going to feed people. And Arline has this unique ability. She gathers people.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, she's getting all these volunteers from the community every week, bringing pans and pans of food. And we were taking them out to the encampments. And then we were taking them to communities that low-income families that we would give them as well. And at the time, the Waldorf Hotel was up.
Yes.
And, that was another, I guess, key point for us, because during Winter Storm Jonah, when it was real bad, again, snow, a lot of people were in the woods. Let's get them out of the woods.
Yeah.
Get them, make arrangements to get them in a hotel. And again, she's drumming up the community to help in this effort, not just feed them, but give warm socks and whatnot. And it was at that point, we discovered it's not just the people in the encampments, but there were people living in that hotel that was their home.
Yes.
And so, again, we expanded and started feeding those individuals as well, and relying upon the community to assist us in that.
Yeah.
And so we were doing this. And we do it. At the time, also, our granddaughter was going through dialysis. So don't ask me how we did that. But
Wow.
yeah, and in fact, in our early stages, our house was full of all of her medicines and dialysis bags. And then as people were donating food, I mean, it literally was full.
Yeah.
And so we got a storage unit to put the food in and, distribute things that way. And somehow, and I don't remember, Arline was talking with one of her friends, and there was something on Facebook, and they were talking about kids in school not eating and then setting up food pantries. And the next thing you know, Arline says, you know what? No kid should go hungry.
Yeah.
And so we are going to start this backpack program. I'm like, what? And she did it, her and Dorothy, and again, the community.
So I'm glad you brought up Miss Dorsey, because I was actually going to ask. I know she is an integral part of your organization and what you all do. And as a matter of fact, I'll do this. I'm going to take a break right here, because I don't want to rush that and the rest of it. I'd like to spend some time on that, because having interacted with your wife, with Arline, she's an infectious human being. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But if you ever, and I'm saying this to the audience, if you ever run into Arline and Dorsey, then you don't stand a chance in not helping. There's no possible way. It's the way they're so passionate about what they do. It oozes off of them, and they're so personable. It's like they're asking you to do something, and you don't realize that they're asking you, but you feel like, I have to help these people, right? And so they're masters at it. I don't know whether they took a class for this or not, but they've got it down to a science. So let's pause real quick, and we'll come back and we'll dive a little bit more into that, and definitely the backpack programs and other programs you all are doing. All right?
All right.
So stand by. We'll be right back.
I am Diantha Sweat, President of Charles County NAACP. I am standing outside Waldorf West Library. I am here today to cast my ballot for the 2020 presidential election. You have the same opportunity to do so by June 2nd, 8 p.m. Please make sure that you sign the oath on the back of the envelope provided. Make your ballot count.
Welcome back. We just heard about the foundation of the Arnold House, the conception of it, and how you started with a soup kitchen. But your wife being who she was and deciding, and how it just, you couldn't turn away from it. At each point, you realized there was a greater need, and there was a reason for you and your wife to meet those needs. And so, I ended with how I came in contact with your wife and Miss Dorsey, who, like I said, I wanted to kind of talk about her for a brief second, and how she became a part of the Arnold House, and I think her title there is the Chief of Staff. And so, as I said before the break, if any one of you here in the community ever run across Miss Dorsey or Miss Arline, if you see them together, you will see this Puerto Rican lady and this Jamaican lady. If you have no intentions on assisting, I would highly suggest you turn the other way, because the moment that you get around them, man, they're so warm, and they, like I said, they have this way of getting you involved without asking you. and then you walking away feeling like I've got to help them. You know, they're so passionate about it. So how did Miss Dorsey get involved with you all?
Dorsey was one of the ones that in the early days of us coming in weekly and the community getting involved and preparing meals, she started there. She was one of those people that came and helped and participated in that. And then her and Arline clicked, and she stuck around and because I still work.
Right.
So they were, going and growing, especially the backpack program. That was the thing that kind of became the springboard, because as I said, we moved all of this stuff that was coming in to our house, and we got a storage unit.
Yes.
And again, we got one, and that thing was getting full. And even we had volunteers were distributing every week, but it's still getting full. And so Arline and Dorsey, Arline was looking and said, we need to get a building, a space. And I'm like, how are we going to get this? We can't afford this. How are we going to, we just have to do it.
Yeah.
And again, I'm like, this is like, how are we going to afford to do this? And so while I'm working every day, it's funny because every now and then I'd go and actually Diotha and I were work one day talking, and she go, yeah, look at what your wife is doing. And Arline had been shopping, and you see she took a picture of this shopping cart full of food, for the backpack program. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? How am I going to pay for this?
Yeah.
But her and Dorsey, they're out and they're looking for spaces and buildings and that sort of thing. And so the next thing I know, it's, hey, we found a space.
Got an office.
Come take a look at it. and so, yeah, and since then, that she's been there, helping and assisting. And again, even when the fact of Arline would have to go for our granddaughter, or we would have to do certain things, Dorsey was there, and she has been there. Mm-hmm.
And I will shamelessly plug her Air Force affiliation, since we've drawn the line in the sand. So, and the fact that I'm a product of West Indian parents also.
Okay,
Dorsey is definitely my teammate in this battle. Right.
Gotcha. And so and I say that because she is the nucleus, and we have another. You hate to kind of call some folks out, but Shirley, who kind of does our front desk, has also been there.
Yes.
But we have a team of volunteers, and they come and go. Mm-hmm. But we also have that group that we can just call on when we really need them.
Yeah.
And that they're there. And that's the core of who we are. And that's the core of what makes us. And as you said, when Arline and Dorsey get out there, they're hitting the community and they're hitting people, and I say the beauty of it is because it crosses so many boundaries in terms of diversity, politics, and all that gets pushed aside, because it's like we have a mission, and it's feeding people, it's making sure the kids eat, and now we also ensure that our seniors are taken care of.
Yeah.
So we're reaching out to our senior community. So
I last September, I had to MC the Hall of Fame event that the Charles County NAACP put on, and when Diotha, when the committee got together and then they gave me the organizations that we were going to enter into our Hall of Fame, and then the Arnold House was one of those organizations, and I got to researching some of the work you all were doing. it was definitely mind blowing after I realized that from the outside looking in that this was headed by the two of you, and now understanding, later on through that what Ms. Dorsey plays and the other volunteers and the core individuals. But a couple of things I remember finding was obviously the backpack program. But the backpack program was so incredible to me because I had heard of it again, I heard of it before I knew who was responsible for it. Mm-hmm. And I also didn't know the numbers of how many children and the frequency by which you all were feeding people. So I remember prepping it and for what I thought were hitting the highlights to read to people, and finding the statistic that you guys started out early with a few kids, it grew to 70 children. And then I know definitely by September, when I gave the narrative on your guys, you were up to 620 children every week. And the backpack was filled with enough food to feed them through the weekend.
Yes.
I don't even know if there's a stronger word than commendable for that action. But then when you tag on things like the food pantry, my daughter over the last summer, because she goes to a Catholic high school, they have to do community service. Mm-hmm. And she assisted you all over at Metropolitan United Methodist Church, with their program to feed the individual. And I think it was lunch. It was lunch because I dropped her off and then came back and picked her up. So it was like a late lunch, early dinner time frame.
We do a Wednesday food pantry, yes.
Yes.
Or, yeah. Mm-hmm. Soup kitchen, I should say.
The food kitchen, yes. Uh-huh. And so you look at all of those things, and then again, since we were in the quarantine, the conversation happened between your relationship with Diotha, and she got a call from social services about having some excess food. I went over to help her deliver that, and I ended up having a conversation with Dorsey and Arline. And I want to say that was almost about a month and a half ago. And literally every Monday and Tuesday, I go over to a local grocery store and pick up the food for you guys, deliver it to your building, and I see them. I see the team that they have, the ladies who come over and help them, and they get that stuff put out. And the people are, especially in this time. So I know the numbers that you have to help people have skyrocketed. Mm-hmm. You're well past these 620 backpacks and things of that nature.
I don't even count. Those ladies do kind of an amazing job. In fact, most of the time I go there, I'm in the way. So I just kind of back out. They have it and they run it. Again, I think that the thing that we do, it's about helping our community. It's about the community coming together to help those in need. For us, this is kind of the second wave that we see, because the first time, believe it or not, when the government furlough and shutdown occurred, mm-hmm. we saw a significant spike in people coming by and getting food. And again, you need it, come get it. Yeah. And during this time is equally challenging. As you said, you come by there twice a week once you drop off. Yeah. And you see people and families are there waiting. Yeah. And it shows you not just the need, but it crosses all lines, race, gender, socioeconomic status. And
absolutely.
Our goal is just to ensure people are fed, and that they're taken care of. Our senior community as well.
Yes.
We ensure that at least we took something aside for them on a weekly basis. Myself and another gentleman, we typically go out on Saturdays, and we're going out into the community because there's a significant population that don't have transportation,
Mm-hmm.
and so they can't get around. They aren't as mobile. So we kind of go to them, and there's a huge need.
Yeah.
Because in many instances, you see where there are multiple families living in a single townhome.
Yeah.
And so the only thing I can say is, therefore, by the grace of God, because there are many times I honestly, don't know how we're going to do it, how it's going to happen, how many we can feed. But again, we give what we have, and we ensure that folks are taken care of. Yeah.
I think it's and I want to read it so that I don't mess it up. But you guys. So you say you are a boots on the ground grassroots organization dedicated to raising awareness to the plight of homelessness and hunger in Southern Maryland. You partner with citizens, commercial businesses, public and private organizations to deliver meals and other basic necessities to those in need. As a mission statement, I don't see anything on here that doesn't get touched and isn't accomplished in some way, shape, or form. And I'm sure you guys get more than enough thank yous from those who it matters the most, from organizations. And like I said, one of the biggest thank yous we, the Charles County NAACP, could have given you was the Hall of Fame honor, which you all so rightly deserved. But personally, being afforded the opportunity to help in some small way, not patting myself on the back or anything. I'm saying it was so eye-opening, right? It really changed the way I felt about this quarantine time, and the face of what need looks like, right? Like we know, this quarantine situation has hit everybody differently.
Right.
And it's kind of even the playing field across the board. And you guys are one of those places where people can come. So let me kind of wrap it up with this final question. Right now, under this situation, I know you guys are open more than you normally were.
Mm-hmm.
What are the times and the days that those in need can come and get food or whatever they need from you all?
Okay, so our food pantry is open Monday and Tuesdays from 10 until 12.
Okay.
And we say that because, again, depending upon, well, let me finish that. Monday, Tuesday, 10 to 12, Thursday, Friday, 10 to 12. Those are the times that individuals can come to the building. Oftentimes, that's dependent upon what we receive in,
Mm-hmm.
and then what goes out, the number of people, because there are days where we've given out more food, or there's more people that have come than we have food, and we try to ration it out properly. But we give as long as we have food. And typically then on Saturdays, again, myself and another gentleman, we will actually go out to communities of need where we know there are individuals or families that are in need. We'll go to some of the encampments as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say to people, if you know someone that really needs, just let us know, and somehow, some way, we will make it work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this, because when I do the pickups, I kind of go on my social media and I, just kind of say, hey, I'm picking up, dropping off at Arnold House, things like that. And I've had people reach out to me and ask me how they can either donate food or money. I have pointed them to your website, but I'm going to ask you to officially answer that question. Anyone watching this who wants to either help with time, resources, or financially, how can they do that?
I honestly would say visit our website, www.thearnoldhouse.org, and that will kind of give you information on volunteering as well as how you can donate to us via PayPal or one of the other services. It has our phone number on there, but again, I will be honest with you, and there are people that have called and said, I've called, but nobody answers because it's a core crew. We depend on volunteers. And again, with the COVID and social distancing, some people are reluctant. So we are bare bones. So we oftentimes don't have time to answer the phone, or we will get back when we can. And it's not a way of ignoring someone. It's just the way it is.
Just the way it is.
We also have a Facebook page, the Arnold House. And again, you could message us there and we will return your call or shoot you a text back. But yeah, that's the best thing. Hit the website. Come by between 10 and 12 and somebody is there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Well, I want to shameless plug. I want to thank my guy Dietrich, because when I asked, is there anything I could help with, and they said, do you got a pickup truck? I said, no, I got a Cherokee, but it should work. And so I called a friend of mine on the spot and asked him, because he has a pickup truck, to borrow his truck, and he was like, no, I'll do you one better. I'll come over and help. So he helps me once or twice a week when he can sneak away from work. But again, I thank you all for all the work you've been doing. You've been at this for quite some time. I think, while we didn't put out dates, what was it, 2015 is when you guys really kind of officially started. That doesn't count in.
Yeah. It's about that time, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, the community thanks you. We thank you. And I hope anyone watching this who wants to get involved will be patient with their contact, but you have the times to come by if you know anyone in need. Like Mr. Arnold said, feel free to drop their name anonymously, and they will figure out a way to get to them so that no one is embarrassed or made to feel any type of way. And so to you, your wife, Arline, Ms. Dorsey, and the rest of your core crew, we thank you for everything you've given to the community and continue to do.
And we thank you and all the volunteers that really help us make the Arnold House what it is, and we appreciate it. And thank you for having us as well.
Not a problem. So that concludes our interview today. Like we said, the Arnold House can be found at www.thearnoldhouse.org. Please reach out to them in any way that you feel led to assist. I will say it again. If you see this Puerto Rican lady and this little Jamaican lady, if you're not ready to help, run the opposite way, because they will pull you in, and what they're doing they believe in, and obviously what you're doing you believe in, and we thank you again. All right, so follow the African American Voices of Charles County on YouTube. You can keep in contact with us via our email address. You can also find out information about the Charles County NAACP via the Facebook or any other social media, including our website. Please stay in touch if you'd like to lend your voice to any social action issues, or just be a part of making your community a better place for all involved. Please come see us. Please come see the Arnold House, and we thank you for watching.